Hi, I'm Fran Prezant at Abilities in Albertson, Long Island, and we're here to talk to you today about ReelAbilities, the third annual New York Disabilities Film Festival. With us in the studio today, we have Anita Altman, who is the Deputy Managing Director for the Department of Government Relations and External Affairs at UJA Federation, New York. Well, thank you for joining us today, Anita, again. And this is the third year of the festival. Can you talk a little bit about its origins, the goals, and how you came to collaborate with the JCC in Manhattan on this?
Sure. Over the last 15 years or so, I've been deeply involved in the development of services for people with disabilities, working with our vast network of agencies. UJ Federation in New York has over 100 agencies. And fortunately, with the collaboration of an incredibly generous foundation, the J.E. and Z.B. Butler Foundation, we have, in partnership, helped to build and transform the UJ Federation network of agencies in terms of services for people with disabilities. Several years ago, actually 4 coming up, we convened a conference on inclusion. It was called Opening the Gates of Community. And it was a watershed conference, I think, for our community because it really targeted the leadership, our rabbinic leadership, our board and executive directors of agencies, to really challenge the communal institutions to recognize our responsibility to really literally open the gates and to welcome and support and embrace people with disabilities, and to recognize that community is a very broad, needs to be a broader definition than has traditionally been acknowledged. During the same time, I was involved with a filmmaker who was making a remarkable film called Praying with Lior, which really raised my consciousness about the impact that film can make on people's consciousness and, as I've come to describe it, opening the hearts and minds. And it became clear to me that one of the ways that we could help foster the whole conversation about inclusion was through film. And one summer night, I was introduced to a young man, Isaac Zablocki, who's the director of the film program at the JCC in Manhattan, on Manhattan's Upper West Side. And in my opening conversation with Yitzi, I said, I have a dream. And my dream is to have a New York Disabilities Film Festival. And Yitzi's immediate response was, that's about the most important thing I could do. And I said, okay, so we're going to do it. And literally 13 months later, we had the first annual ReelAbilities New York Disabilities Film Festival. From the beginning, we chose to make this a New York community film festival, not a Jewish community. And I say that because we recognize that what we were aiming to do was really to help transform cultural attitudes, and that we needed to engage the whole community of New York. Clearly, coming out of the Jewish community, I feel a particular mission within my own community, but this is a much larger issue. And the challenge is for all of us. Hence, the structure of the festival is really to reach out and build partnerships well across not only the geographic region of the New York metropolitan area, but also across disabilities, across communities. And now that we're in our third year, I feel as if, we have a ways to go, because it's a constantly evolving process, but that in fact we're achieving that goal.
So you mentioned transforming cultural attitudes, and inherent in that is increasing awareness about the lives of people with disabilities.
Absolutely.
Empowering people with disabilities to be part of society.
Absolutely. One of the things I think that we've recognized in our work is how marginalized people with disabilities and their families feel. They really feel cut off, neglected, ignored, and abandoned. some. I can't speak for everybody, but that certainly is the feedback that we've gotten. A lot of and very disempowered. And the hope and the vision that imbues the ethos of this festival is really to show our common humanity. Our films are not tearjerkers to evoke pity. They're not about the heroic individual who's overcoming all obstacles. They're about real people, and what you, I think, and certainly the feedback that we've gotten from the audience who've seen the films is how transformational it is. I mean, we see our common humanity in the other, and the other may not be all that different. They have different issues in their lives, but frankly, we all have issues in our lives. So that is really one of the critical components, I think, and the aims of this festival.
So clearly this has been successful. It's in its third year. Can you talk a little bit about some of the feedback, and then what are some of the changes you've seen over the past 3 years?
Well, last year we instituted audience surveys, and we were really gratified by the high level of response. People really loved the films. And they talked about how much they felt they had learned from just sitting in a dark theater. Now remember that each of our screenings also incorporates, and this is critical to the program, a talkback. So it's not just sitting in a dark theater and watching a film. The lights go up at the end of the film, and there's a conversation that takes place. What we aim to do is, as much as we can and what we can afford, because this is really still run on a relatively shoestring budget, is to try and bring the filmmakers, in some instances the stars of our films, to be involved in a conversation. And if we're not able to do that, to craft programs to bring people who are experts in the particular, issues that are being screened to participate with the audience. As I say, the feedback was wonderful, and the demographic was also so interesting last year because we had a more than doubling in the number of people who saw the films. There were, I think, altogether over the course of the festival, over 4,000 people who participated, and it was a relatively young demographic, and it was a very mixed demographic. There were certainly people with disabilities who participated, but more than a majority were not. In terms of the change, we are really growing. I mean, I feel as if we've struck a resonant chord. This year we've expanded our partners. We have, for the first time, the New York Public Library as a partner with us, and there are going to be screenings and programs in a number of branch libraries in the Bronx and Manhattan. We have 2 museums that have signed on, the Guggenheim and the Whitney. CUNY, has more formally embraced us, and I'm expecting actually in year 4 next year that we will have even more CUNY campuses participating. And at this point we have 20 different locations. They run from, they're in every single county of our New York metropolitan area: Westchester, the 5 boroughs of New York City, and Nassau and Suffolk County. Each will have screenings, and we've tried to do is make the screenings as accessible as possible and bring them into the communities where people live.